Dads, do you want a thriving business that doesn't control you? A passionate marriage and kids that adore you? Do you want to grow deeper in your faith? Be healthier, both physically and mentally? Build more meaningful relationships with your friends? Welcome to the Balanced Business Dad podcast, where in each episode we dive into balancing and optimizing the 6 pillars of life: faith, health, marriage, fatherhood, brotherhood, and business. And here are your hosts, pioneers of the Balanced Business Dad movement, Dustin Hogue and RJ Campbell.
What is going on, guys? And welcome to another episode of the Balanced Business Dad. I'm your host, Dustin Hogue, with my co-host here. You know what? I'm just going to say Mr. RJ Campbell.
Wow, look at that. He's being nice to me because we are recording this close to my birthday. It's my birthday month anyway, and I just milked the hell out of my birthday.
Absolutely. Guys, I am super excited about this because we are going to explain to you what we call and what we use in our lives, but it's called the DADUP Framework. Guys, this episode is going to be probably really near and dear to our heart because this is something that we had been using and we didn't know what it really was. You hear us talk a lot about on the podcast as well as our free Facebook group, but it's time to dad up, DADUP. And we've designed a framework around that because it helps us achieve, I think is the best way to say that. It helps us hit the goals we want to hit. It helps us when we want to do something and we know we're going to have to create a plan around it. If you dad up and lean into it, it will happen.
Yes. It's that simple.
It is that simple.
It's not man up.
No.
It's dad up.
Man up might get you hit if you tell somebody to man up.
Yeah. You tell somebody to man up and you're going to probably get kicked in the twig and berries.
Yeah. And that's not fun. So what does this even mean? Well, first of all, we put this in because we know that the pillars of life, which you hear us talk about all the time, but the pillars of life that we find so important are the 6 pillars, which in order is our faith, our health, marriage, fatherhood, brotherhood, and then business or our career. And we've implemented the DADUP framework around every one of those, and we're going to let you know what all this means. So
in
first,
detail.
In detail. And then how we've also used it to accomplish some pretty large things, as well as how we use it in everyday life right now. So what does this mean? What does DADUP mean? Well, if you can picture it, dad up vertically, where the D, the A, the D, the UP is all in a vertical format. Let's start with the top D. Decide. Decide to be better. Decide to lose weight. Decide to leave corporate America. Whatever it is, we have to decide.
Decide to quit smoking.
Decide.
Whatever this thing is. Yeah. Decide to get healthy. This is going to sound so simple when we go through these 5 things. But when you put them together and do it in this order and utilize, we'll get to that later on the U, because that's utilize. It's powerful.
It is.
It's simple but powerful.
It really is.
So I interrupted on decide. We didn't get very far on the DADUP framework.
But decide, right? Decide to be better. And it's interesting, and I'm probably going to misquote this, but decide comes from a Latin root of side, C-I-D-E, which means to cut off. So insecticide, pesticide, all of that side means we're cutting it off, right? So when we decide, we're cutting off all other options. Right? So we truly, when we say, hey, I'm deciding to do this, we have to mean it. Then we go down to the A. We have to analyze the gap. And what does that mean? Analyze the gap means you have to know where you are and where you want to be. And what is that gap? If I am 50 pounds overweight, if I am, need to quit smoking and I smoke 2 packs a day now, whatever it may be, we have to know where we are to get to where we're going.
Right. And we have to know where we're going.
Absolutely.
Compared to where we are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The next D, guys, is going to be develop the plan. So, and again, this sounds so simple, and the plan can be whatever you want to be, but as long as there's a plan around it, I'm not going to quit smoking, meaning I'm not going to buy cigarettes anymore. That would be a part of the plan if I was to quit smoking, right? So the second D there is develop the plan. Then we go to U, and this is the one that RJ kind of hit on a little bit, but that means utilize. And that means utilize the brotherhood that you have around you. We formed the DADUP Council, which you can find that on our Facebook page, and we can talk to you a little bit more about that if you're interested in it. But you have to have that peers, that support group that's going to help you and hold you accountable to the plan that you've set for yourself.
Yep. In today's group, your accountability group, your accountability partners, the people you share this with, you've shared the plan. And now they are going to be the ones that keep you on track, question what you're doing, reward you when you're getting it right, be there to support you when you're struggling. It's a huge part of this.
Yeah. I heard a quote yesterday that's so interesting that it really hit home, but the right group compounds your efforts. The brotherhood that we have, that we formed, or that maybe you have somewhere else, is going to compound your effort to make this plan that you're doing go quicker, smoother. I'm not going to say easier because it's still going to be a challenge, but it's going to be a lot smoother, I think is the right word there.
Go back to that word.
Yeah.
We'll just keep using smoother.
I like smooth.
I like it. I'm good with smooth.
All right. So we've got the D, we've got the A, we've got the other D, and now we have the U, and now we have the P. Dads, it means perform. Perform like your life depends on it, because in reality, it does. There's a lot of things that you can say, oh, my life really doesn't depend on it, but we have to perform and we have to change before it's too late. RJ and I had the pleasure of meeting a gentleman who is the CEO and president of United Franchise Group, and he actually wrote a book called Change Before You Have to. And that's so true, and I think it's one of the hardest things we have to do sometimes, but we have to perform because our life does depend on it.
It does. That is eliminating those two horrible words that come after you did not do this, the if only, because it does depend. There are so many things, big or small, that we can apply the DADUP framework to. But boy, the big ones that you did not decide to do it, or you didn't perform like your life depended on it, end with that if only. Yeah. If only I had ...
Yeah.
And what's the downside of that? Well, that's only be determined by what it was, but
yeah. So let's just recast a little bit over there, then I'm going to tell you a story. But the DADUP, so it stands for decide to be better in X, analyze the gap, develop the plan, utilize the brotherhood, that accountability group, and then perform. And perform like your life depends on it, because it does. I'm going to go back now a few years ago. I can't even remember the exact year. I guess this was 2020. So January of 2020, I am in a mastermind setting, so in a hotel room with 12 strangers, and you may or may not have heard this story, but I took a challenge in life then to get healthy. So I'm 75 pounds less than I was then. I'm a lot stronger than I was then. Even my food, every habit I have is just healthier right now, I think is the best thing to say.
Yep.
But when I took that stance, what I did is I decided that day in that hotel room, or in that conference room, I decided that night I got very clear on where I was and where I wanted to be. I made a goal that, I was just going to fight a professional boxer, and it was this fight and things like that. But the reality of it is, I was very unhealthy, 320 pounds, if you will, and I didn't want to be there anymore. So I decided in small things, because it's still a journey for me, but where I wanted to be. So I analyzed that gap. Then first, I developed the plan I was going to do, how I was going to do it, what I was going to do, how much I was going to work out, what I wanted to eat. And I started really developing a starter plan for that.
I'm going to go backwards.
Okay.
Interrupt you.
Yeah.
Analyzing the gap.
Yeah.
What did you see in that gap? I mean, there was a big gap.
There was a big gap.
But where it stood out as the things you needed to fix, to develop a plan around?
Great question. My identity is probably the biggest one for me. I identified my entire life that I was obese, and I was okay with that. I made myself okay with it. Let me put it that way. So I knew real quick the gap was going to be in my identity and my mindset way before it was going to be into working out and eating right.
Damn, I didn't expect that answer. I expected working out and eating right. Get strong, get fit, get fast. I didn't expect that. Wow.
Well, and that's probably a whole nother episode about identity. But the reality of it is I knew to lose weight, you had to eat right and exercise.
Everybody knows that.
Yeah. So that wasn't the thing I didn't know, so that's not what was holding me back. Well, I don't know how to do that. No, it was 100% the identity and the mindset around it. Good question.
So, wow, that's a good one. That's so true. My wife and I talk about that when talk about needing to lose weight or get in shape or develop a group around that. Let's form a group of that. And she always says, but everybody knows how to lose weight. You just eat less and exercise a little. I'm like, well, we all know that, but we don't do it.
Right.
That's the identity part, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a whole nother episode, which is great. We're going to get extra ideas and some episodes coming up. But anyway, so I developed the plan. But then I took it back and I utilized the brotherhood. I utilized that mastermind group. And I didn't know this is what I was doing at the time. But that's what I was using. I was utilizing this accountability group. I hired people. Like I was paying for this brotherhood that I had too in a lot of sense, because I was paying for a mastermind. I had 2 boxing coaches. I had 1 strength trainer. I had a wellness coach. like all of that was part of this brotherhood that I put together to utilize often because I knew I was going to need help in this journey. And the last one was just put in the work and perform. You know, when I say perform like your life depends on it, because it does, mine really, truly did. In a physical aspect, my life depended on it.
For two reasons.
Mm-hmm.
One of them, you were overweight and unhealthy.
Correct.
The second one, you were getting in the ring with a professional boxer who, if you didn't perform well,
absolutely,
was just going to beat your ass.
Right.
Sorry.
And he did anyway.
He did.
But it would have been a lot worse, the 10 months before that. So, when I realized that, and when we start putting together this DADUP framework, I realized this is how I have accomplished the things that I wanted to accomplish. I just didn't have this systematic approach of doing it.
We had not labeled it or defined it in that way.
But the system's always been there. There's nothing new under the sun. I'm a true believer of that. This is just something us systematizing this for this, getting a little bit clear on it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I've used the DADUP framework. Now, Mr. RJ, what about you?
Another one, did not know this is what I was doing. So, I've talked about this before when Dustin and I have known each other for a long time, worked together 10, 11 years ago, went our separate ways. Dustin went into real estate. So then my wife and I decided to get into real estate investing because of Dustin. So we hired Dustin and another gentleman, Tim, to be a coach. I had always been in corporate America, was still, working a 9-to-5 job and, was ready to be done with that, but I'm not that close to retirement age yet. So we started investing in real estate. So that's really a side hack. I started a photography company, another side hack, and then got to the point where, okay, what do we have to do between my wife and I that I can leave my, well-paying job? So that's where, again, we didn't know it was the DADUP framework. So that's where it all started. Okay, what do we need to do? And there were different things that kicked off that desire more than just, I don't want to work for a big company anymore. I think we've told the story before of Dustin and I went to a mastermind one day with another person that I've relied on, Mike Kitko. We've had him on the podcast before. Great guy to listen to, a life coach. And we went to one of his masterminds, and I'm sitting there and looking around. I know a lot of the people there. It's a lot of investors, a lot of entrepreneurs that I know. And it hit me that I'm one of the oldest people here, and I'm probably the only one that asked permission from a boss to take a day off and come learn something for the day. So things like that compounded. And that's when I decided, okay, what do we need to do to, make this a full-time job, get out of corporate America and become an entrepreneur? So that was the first one. That was the decide. Okay, we're going to do this. Now we have to analyze that gap. How much money do we have? Are we earning? How much money do we need? As Tim Grimmett, who's another friend of ours and been on the podcast, I think, right? The very beginning.
One of the very
We've
first,
done enough of these now that it's hard to remember the early ones. It refers to your financial freedom line. How much money do you have that anything above that is not necessary? So there was analyzing the gap. What do we need to fill that gap?
Yeah.
So between real estate and photography, and then it was developing that plan. Okay, grow the portfolio, grow the businesses, pay off debt. And so there was the plan that we put together. Now, utilizing the brotherhood, we didn't have the DADUP Council at that time, but for my accountability group, that was Dustin. We developed a plan together, talked to him about it all the time. Tim Grimmett that we just mentioned. Once I mentioned this one time to Tim, I'm telling you, there was never a time that I saw him. Every meeting we went to, every time we ran into each other, so when are you quitting your job? What do you have to do this week? What are we doing? And Mike Kitko was the exact same way. Every time we'd see him. So what are we doing? When are you getting out of work? When are you going to do this? And then would answer questions and help with that plan. So there was utilizing a brotherhood that I have. Really 3 coaches that I had without knowing I had coaches.
And there's something there that's showing just surrounding yourself with those people. You can't say that I'm thinking about doing something or I really want to do this and not have action if you're with the right people.
That is so true.
Because the right people are going to call you out.
Yes.
They're going to take a stand for your goals, sometimes more than you do.
Yep. So there was utilizing the brotherhood as we were executing this plan. And I remember as we got close to the end of this, process and thinking, okay, we're getting close. We could probably take retire from this job. And I remember talking to Dustin one day, and he's same thing, holding me accountable. And he asked me a question. He said, what would you do if you got fired from your job tomorrow? I'm like, well, guess I'd go 100% into the other companies that we've started. He's like, perfect. Quit your job tomorrow.
Yeah, you're fired.
You're fired. You did it, So, okay, then what's the worst that can happen? And it wasn't very long after that.
Yeah.
With the blessing of my wife that we, after performing like their life depended on it and getting everything set up, absolutely. All right, retired. So that was a little over a year ago.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, that was last April.
Now, the interesting thing, you had that identity switch when that question was asked.
About, if I got fired? Yes.
Right? So that's what happens sometimes. It takes this brotherhood to ask these questions to help you shift your identity.
Yep.
Right? Because you didn't think about that.
No. I mean, that answered it right there.
Yeah.
What would happen if you lost your job tomorrow? Well, I guess this is what I would do. Okay.
Yeah.
You're fired.
Yeah. And I didn't know how he was going to answer that question. If he would have said, well, I had to go find another job. All right. He hasn't switched.
Yeah.
The mindset hasn't been there yet.
Yeah.
Right. We can work through that. Right. That might be going back and forth. Right. So the DADUP system, the DADUP framework is fluid as well, because you're going to hit things and then you're going to go back and you want to improve them.
Right.
Right. But if you really, really think about what you want to accomplish, and I keep on using the word accomplish because so many people set goals. This is what I'm going to accomplish, though. Right?
Yes.
And use this systematic framework to do it. The results speak for themselves. And the cool part is it happens sooner than you think it will.
It does. And if it doesn't, that's okay. I don't want to make it look like just anybody could say, oh, I want to quit my job and be an entrepreneur, and I'm going to do that 3 weeks from Thursday. And, for me, it was a process.
Absolutely.
But
yeah. I mean, it even started when you started investing in real estate, because you guys downsized your house. You lowered your freedom number.
Yes.
So you didn't really have a plan, but you were still performing for something there.
Yes.
Something that you had wanted.
That's exactly right. Once we saw that graph that Tim and Dustin put up that explained what the freedom line was, like, wow, really? So that's the minimum amount of money we have to make to pay all of our bills and survive.
Yes.
It's a lower number than you think.
And then you even lowered it more.
We lowered it more by even downsizing a house even more.
Yeah.
So the DADUP framework, it worked.
It worked.
So I was able to retire and now only have 4 other companies.
There you go.
It was a beautiful thing.
Right.
So yes. And now we do it all the time. Dustin and I own businesses together.
Every day.
We own a Signorama, a sign store. And we used the DADUP framework just the other day. Dustin, we were talking about a particular thing. He said, all right, how are we going to DAD up on this?
Yeah.
Let's put it down. What are the 5 things? Let's start.
Yeah. And once you think about that and you think about it this way, ask yourselves, all right, how am I going to DAD up today? Or what am I doing today? And again, I go back to the 6 pillars, right, that we speak so much about. What would your life look like if you DAD upped in every one of those pillars?
Right. What would it look like if you even just pick one of them today?
Absolutely.
Just pick one.
Yeah.
I'm going to DAD up in my faith.
Yeah. Develop a plan around it. What is even the gap that you want to be? What do you want to be in your faith? What do you want your health to look like?
And it doesn't have to be drastic.
No, not at all.
Faith, it could be as simple as, I want to spend 5 or 10 minutes every morning in prayer or reading the Bible. I want to go to church once a month at least because I haven't been, or twice a month. I mean, it doesn't have to be drastic.
Yeah.
And then develop that plan.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. So guys, this is the DADUP framework. This is what we hold so dear to our heart because it's what's changed our lives. We didn't know necessarily what it was, but now that we know what it was, it brings so much clarity to it. And we wanted to share that clarity with you. Guys, go out and DAD up.
DAD up.
All right, guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode. As always, please go like, share, and review on your favorite podcast players. You can also get this DADUP framework as well as a video explaining it at our free Facebook group. Come join the free Facebook group you can just go straight to a web browser and type in dadupgroup.com. That'll take you right there.
Or org. Is it .com?
It's .com.
Okay. See, I don't even know yet.
I just bought it today.
DADUPgroup.com.
DADUPgroup.com. Go there. Join the Facebook group. You can get this DADUP framework right there on top. It's pinned to the post. And we'll love to see you there.
We'll talk to you there.
Thank you, guys.
This is the podcastfactory.com.